Hello everyone, thanks for joining me again to check out the update on my little game here. A few fun little things that I've done. I have been trying to decide how I want to handle the creating of things in the world, right? How I want to handle how enemies get spawned in, or how maybe other weapons or other power-ups or health or random things like that. How do those spawn into the world? And what I decided to do is I decided to add a bunch of spawn locations to my tile blueprint here. So I set the mesh of the tile right here. I set that to something just to have something to reference as I put in these locations. And then also how the tiles are basically built is there's 16 squares. There's a 4x4 square in this tile, really. And you've got, 1, 2, 3, 4 down here, and there happens to be a floor on 2 of those spaces. And so I've just added spawn locations for different things on all of those different spots there, starting at 1 and going across like that. What this is going to help me do is find world locations for things to spawn into. So I have all of my locations there, and then I have my arrays, and I'm setting the world location of whatever that spawn thing is for that individual tile, adding it to an array, and then later on I can come in here and I can say, okay, there's a 4% chance that an enemy spawns here, or there's a 6% chance that a health item spawns here, or whatever else, right? I'm not sure how I want to handle that for individual tiles, right? Because the tiles get set randomly per I guess tile, right? As you remember, I've got this, and if I jump out of here, then this tile, for example, has these 3 spots with a floor underneath it. Obviously, there's no floor underneath that spawn location. There is a spawn location here, but I wouldn't want one thing to spawn here and one thing to spawn here as well, unless it floated. But for example, if 2 enemies spawn here, I want the enemies to land on these platforms and then stay on these platforms, right? If they can walk, then I want them to walk. So I'm not sure how I'm going to dynamically handle that just yet. I'll have to come back to that, think on it a little bit more. Maybe I can tell each tile which spawn locations to use, or which ones to add to the array, or whatever. That might be a lot of work to set up, because like I've showed you, I have 12 different tiles. Do I have 12 or do I have 16? Can't remember now. Oh, I have 18. Awesome. So there's even more. So I don't know if I want to do that for all 18 individual tiles. I'll just have to see how it feels, what happens. But there's a start, right? That's what I'm going to start with, is these locations. And then I'm going to use the array, which is basically just a collection of all that data. I'm going to use an array of all of those world locations to then say, hey, there's a small % chance that one thing or another will spawn there. So that's how I've built that area. And then I also, as you can see, I've got my new little character here. So I found this little guy on Mixamo, as well as all the animations. Another thing that I've decided to do recently, kind of just today actually, was to make it a medieval kind of theme. Keeping with the theme of me working at medieval times and being in that world. So I found my little Paladin character, and he came with a sword and a shield, which is great. I'm just going to stick with those for now. I might see if I can come back later and change these out with like different weapons, but that's kind of far down the road. We'll start with this for now. So imported this guy, and then imported all of the animations that came with him. Lots of good stuff I can use here. And then I built my animation blueprint, and this tells the skeleton what to do, right? So if we're in this state, then we're just idle. And then this is my transition to running. If we're running, I get that value, and then we play a different animation, right? We play this animation instead, and so on with all of the different states here. And I might add another one for like falling. I will have to come back here and add states for attacking and defending and things like that. So yeah, that's where that is. I also jumped in here. This is kind of a new thing, not a new thing, but something new that I learned. I've always kind of had trouble with the collisions and how to update them, but I did find a tutorial online and some tips online so that I could add collisions to certain bones on the character, right? So this is the character. He comes with a skeleton right here, and these are all the different bones. So there's his left hand thumb bone, there's his neck bone, there's his head bone, he even has eye bones, right arm, right forearm, left leg, left toe, all that stuff, right? And this came with little joints or bones for where the sword and the shield are. So what I did is I added a socket there, and then in the character, if I add a collision as a child of the mesh, I can tell it what socket to attach to. So the sword collision is attached to the sword joint socket, and the shield collision is attached to the shield joint socket. The shield collision here is oversized because I want it to behave differently than the sword collision, right? I want the sword collision to be able to pass through things like enemies. So a sword would pass through a capsule collision similar to this, right? As the character moves around, the capsule collision goes with him, and if an enemy's weapon passes through here, it would do damage to me. And then if my weapon passes through an enemy's capsule, I want to do damage to the enemy. So I want that to pass through enemies, but I don't want this to pass through enemies. I want this to block anything that comes at the player. So I'm gonna have this behave differently. I'm probably going to deactivate it to start out with, right? And then only activate it for a small amount of time when the character blocks. So for maybe half to 3/4 of a second, when the character pushes block, it'll play the block animation and then activate the collision box so that it then will behave how I want it to. It'll block anything, nothing will pass through it, and then we'll deactivate it again. So it kind of gives a little bit of twitch controls and strategy and action sort of mechanics trying to feed it. Yeah, that's the bulk of what I've got done so far. I also was able to put together a little bit of a roadmap here, just a couple different things that I want to do. Maybe adding a few more weapons, different enemies I want to add, different buffs. I want to do like some chests with some enhancements to the different character stats and how much damage the character does, things like that. Different little gameplay things, my tiles, and then just my to-do list here to keep me on task and to keep me moving forward. So yeah, I'm really excited about what I've got here. I'm probably going to come in to here and add my attacking and defending animations so that can be set up ready to go when I add enemies in. So I'll probably jump online again, find some more meshes for enemies, load those in, build the blueprints, and go from there. So really happy with how it's coming along. I like the medieval theme here. I like the idea that you're going up like a medieval castle's tower or something of the sort. We'll see what I can do gameplay wise with that and the different fun things I can come up with. But that'll be it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for keeping updated with me, and hope to see you again in a week or two. Bye now.